Hello, and welcome to the Queen Bee Book Club podcast. I'm Audrey.
And I'm Cher.
And this is our 46th episode. I almost said 45th, even though I just checked.
Well,
I gotta keep those episode counts correct.
So the first thing I want to talk about is my friend Charlotte sent me this article today about Alanis Morissette, which I want to send you. And it's basically this woman interviews her about her, like, she's pregnant with her third child now. And, like, her pregnancy and birth experience. It was, like, the most me thing I've ever read in my life. And then she talks about, like, her experience with, you know that song Hands Clean?
Yes.
Like, you would recognize it, like, you have washed your hands clean. Oh, you know.
Yeah,
that's the one. You got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess, like, that song, which if you look at the lyrics, it is really obvious, is about her having a relationship, like, when she's, I think, like, young, like 15 or 16 with an older man, and how it's, like, I mean, it's basically about statutory rape.
Ew.
But anyway, so she, like, talked about that. Anyway, it's a really great read. I recommend it to all. It's from Shape magazine, which is not something I usually am reading, but really recommend this one. It's written by this woman who writes for Slate, and it's very good.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that Shape is having some high quality
journalism
articles.
I know.
Along with the tips and tricks to tuck your tummy this summer.
Yeah. Steps to be able to do one pull-up by the end of the year or whatever.
Exactly. Keeping our goals manageable.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing pull-ups, I am sore because I got the closest I've ever gotten to doing a cartwheel yesterday and practiced too many times. And now the side of my back feels very tight because I didn't stretch first. And I'm apparently too old to just, like, try a cartwheel. I want to be clear that I didn't do a cartwheel. It was just the closest I've ever gotten to a cartwheel.
Well, not to brag, but I have a really good cartwheel. So.
I'm sure you do. I was thinking about how I was going to tell you this, and then I was like, I bet Cher can do a cartwheel. I mean, most people, I think, can.
Well, not to brag, but I did gymnastics from, like, ages, like, 6 to 12 or whatever. Okay. Probably not even, definitely not that long. I did as a kid. Mm-hmm. And so I actually can do a pretty good cartwheel, and I can do a good handstand. But those are, like, pretty much my only skills that I picked up from that.
Gymnastically.
Yeah. I can't do flips or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Or, like, I don't know. What do they call it? Like, what they do in spy movies? Where you, like, jump. Like, you basically, like, jump backwards into a handstand and then jump on your feet.
What?
Okay. It's
a backflip?
No.
A round off.
No, I can do a round off. That's basically a cartwheel.
According to Rachel and Lauren, what I was doing more resembled a round off than a cartwheel. Because did Rachel and Lauren do gymnastics? They strike me as people who would have. Actually, Rachel did, and she broke her nose and then didn't do them anymore.
Okay. My sister was much better than me at gymnastics.
Which one, Mary-Kate or Savannah?
Savannah. I don't know that Mary-Kate ever did gymnastics. She might have just done ballet. Mm-hmm. But Savannah was really good, and they wanted her to compete. They definitely never asked me if I was interested in competing.
It's probably better that she didn't.
It is better. Yeah, she did ballet instead. But, yeah, I had too much fear. Like, I was afraid of going upside down. Like, I was afraid of going too fast. I was afraid of losing control of my body. You know, I had glasses. I was just already handicapped. I think
that was my problem as a child of doing a cartwheel, that I was like, I don't know about this. And then it remained an issue. Okay, which is weird because I was a soccer goalie. So, like, I had to dive around for that. But I think it was just because there were stakes to it. It was like, the ball will go in the net if I don't do this. So I didn't think about it. But if we were, like, in practice, I had a harder time, like, diving on the ground for stuff.
Okay, well, to be fair, I find it really impressive that you played any kind of sport ever, because I didn't ever, so. And goalie is important.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of pressure.
I was kicked in the head twice. The second time, I was taken to the doctor and I had a concussion. The first time, my dad said, she's fine.
Cool.
The ref was like, are you okay? And my dad from the sidelines yelled, "She's all right, keep playing." I was just like,
oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing the one time I've met your dad, I can see it.
Yeah. My mom, like, my dad, like, to his credit, like, never played soccer, but he, like, like, my brothers and I all played, and so he, like, learned the rules, and, like, really, like, my brother was a goalie, too, and, like, my dad, like, really got into it. Like, he used to call me Mia Hamm, because,
I love that.
Yeah, and, like, I had a poster, all the stuff. And not that I was ever even, like, good at soccer. I want to make that clear, too.
Well.
I could have been a good goalie if I was nurtured. But my parents were very supportive. But, like, I grew up in a town where it was just, like, very competitive all the time. And so winning was more important, I think, than, like, nurturing a love of the sport. But my mom never really learned the rules. And so, like, when I used to play defense, like, the ball would be on the other end and I was meant to stay where I was, because that's not, like, scoring goals is not your role in defense. But my mom would, like, be sitting on the sidelines being like, "Come on, Audrey, get in there." And I was like, "Mom, that's not."
You're like, "Mom, I'm supposed to stay here and block this thing."
Yeah, I'm like, "This is not what I'm supposed to do." So, there you go.
Well, so Team USA won, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, very exciting. Alex Morgan scored a goal on her birthday, which has to be exciting.
Oh, that's great.
I think I've scored 2 goals in my entire life. So
me and my fellow intern have been fighting about whether or not the women and men's team should be equally paid. And I'm like,
well, they should, because the women win.
That's what I said. I'm like,
I feel like they should be paid more.
I'm like, if anything, they should be paid more. Yeah, I know. Have you been watching any of the debates?
I tragically missed both of them, because, like, I actually really enjoy the political theater of debates, but for whatever reason, like, just wasn't, like, thinking about them or whatever. But I did watch, like, some videos and, like, look at some tweets afterward.
Yeah, I missed the first night.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me, like, how they split them up. Like, they didn't do, like bottom tier, top tier. It was, like, it seemed like more spread out than that. It was a mix. Yeah. Because I was like, why is that mysticism girl in the same debate as, like...
Marianne Williamson? Loved her.
I was like, she has to be pulling lower than Cory Booker.
But boy, was she fun.
Oh, sure. I mean, everyone was like, let's keep her around. This is good stuff.
This will be awesome for Saturday Night Live.
We like it.
I mean, isn't that how Trump won? Who knows?
I mean, yeah. God.
Let's see. What else is going on? Oh, I started Riverdale.
Ugh. See, the first season is great.
Teen drama corner. So I've started season 2.
Okay, season 2, I will not lie to you, goes off the rails a little bit. But it's still just kind of fun to be like, this show is a show that exists.
Yeah. I sort of thought Riverdale was going to be the answer to sort of my question of what is good TV. Sort of, because I sort of, like, it has all the elements that I want. Like, it's basically like Gossip Girl meets, like, PLL, sort of.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I want. This is what I've always wanted.
Well, in, like, season 1, I was like, oh, yes, the genre of teen has been, like, reinvigorated. I'm so excited. And I think it's, like, the classic trap of, like, the first season only was 13 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
It was, like, 10 or 13. And then the second season, they spread it out into 22. And that's a lot harder to make content for 22 episodes when your show is supposed to be kind of, like, splashy and...
Yeah.
I think I still enjoy watching it just for the spectacle, but I think my biggest issue with it is that, like, they make them teenagers when it's convenient, and then they ignore the fact that they're teenagers when it's convenient in a way that kind of irritates me.
What do you mean by that?
Just that, like, similar to on, like, One Tree Hill, there are plot lines and things that happen with the characters, or just, like, attitudes about, like, sex or, like, murder.
Oh, yeah.
That I just don't buy for, like, 16 and 17-year-old kids.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Yeah, I think the way that they portray the sex in this show is just not teenagers.
No.
Like, it's just, like, it's, like, Veronica is, like, it's like grown-up stuff. It's like, oh, Archie's in the shower, and she, like, shows up with, like, her pearls and, like, naked. I'm like, no, like, this is, like teenage girls are not this confident.
Yeah. 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 I mean, in later seasons, it's a little bit, and, like, Hiram Lodge, like, has, like, these weird feuds with Archie, and it's like, he's 17 years old. I don't understand.
Oh, I haven't gone there yet. I will say, it's one of those things where it's, like, some of the characters I really love, and then some of the characters I'm like, you're just phoning it in. Like, Archie is the worst character on television.
So he uninteresting.
Sucks. He just is so boring. Like, he's like Finn Hudson, but, like, so much worse. Like, I enjoyed Finn Hudson. But, like, they kind of tried to remake Finn Hudson, except lamer in Archie.
I feel like the only version of that archetype that I've ever seen that worked was Matt Saracen. Like, I feel like...
You didn't like Finn?
No, I liked Finn. I thought Finn was fine. But I thought that... I don't know. Like, I thought, like... I mean, Glee had a broader problem that was, like, just... They couldn't ever figure out how to move forward with the show, so it was constantly, the same few plots circling back and forth. But I think, like, that archetype of, like... I don't know... sensitive football player, I've only really seen work well and enjoy with Matt.
Well, and I also think, like, I just could not care less about Archie's music career, sort of, like, so I'm just sort of like,
no.
Why are we doing this? Like, why are
every time they're singing on that show, I'm like, why is this needed?
Yeah, I kind of like it when Josie and the Pussycats sing.
Oh, I like that.
And I like it when, like, Cheryl or Veronica guess in that. But
I was gonna say, I don't like it when Veronica, like, has Veronica sung Alone yet? Because I don't like it when she does that.
I don't know.
Like, she already has too many, like, she's already so prominently featured in the show. Like, couldn't Josie have sung that song?
Yeah. Yeah, so Archie, I'm just, like, really don't like him. Bored, like, annoyed, all around, don't like him. Veronica, again, a disappointment to me, which I think I had gone into that show thinking, like, oh, well, like, I'm going to be Team Veronica because Betty's going to be too boring for me, and Veronica's going to, like, fulfill, like, my Blair Waldorf dreams, and she just doesn't. No. At all.
But Betty solves crime. Like,
yeah, Betty's, like a Nancy Drew, so I, like, now like Betty. But it's just, like, I don't usually like the good girl, like, I just sort of am, like, I don't, like the girl next door archetype. I'm like, that's never, like, been who I am. So I'm sort of like, I don't relate to you. I don't care about your, like,
right.
I don't know, your goody two shoes past or whatever you have. But I mean, I like her though. She has, like, that weird thing where she, like, makes her hands bleed, and she had that weird scene where she, like, tried to drown that football player when she
like, burn him alive. I'm not sure what that plan was.
So then once that happened, I was like, all right, Betty, like, I think we have some stuff in common. But yeah, I don't know. Disappointed by Veronica. Like, I think the, like, rich girl snobby thing, I feel like Veronica tries too much to be a mom sometimes. Like, she's like Archiekins and, like, all that crap. I'm just like, it's just gross. And, like, she's always like, oh, the old Veronica. And I'm like, ugh, I'm not interested by this.
Yeah.
Dialogue.
Well, and I think she, more than any of them, also talks in a way that no one speaks. Where
no one ever.
Like, she, like, it's, like, a lot of, like, buzzwords, like, for teenagers, I think, that they, like, put into her, into her dialogue, that I'm like, I don't think that this is how this works. Yeah. And it's not like Gilmore Girls or, like, The West Wing, where it's just, like, everybody talks in, like, a snappy way. Or, in Gilmore Girls, where there's a lot of references that feels like this is just the world of the show, and this is what people... Like, this is just, like, the language of the show. Yeah. It's just her that's doing it. And like it feels like the writers trying to be like, see, we're hip, like we get it, we know what the kids like.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously my favorite character is Jughead.
Oh, for sure.
Which, you know, surprises no one in my lifelong quest to heal broken men, but
for sure.
Yeah. God bless. Also, just like really thrilled to see whatever that kid's name is, that actor, can't remember it. Sweet Life of Zach and Cody doing something big.
Yeah. Cole Sprouse.
What's the other one up to?
Dylan, I think, is acting in something. His hair is very long.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but Cole Sprouse also does like some like pretty serious photography. Like he's done like spreads for like W Magazine and stuff.
I'm just thrilled to hear it. Really glad.
Just doing well. They went to NYU and now they're thriving.
Love that. Love the gay best friend, whatever his name is.
I really think he's underserved because he really is all the time.
I know. I only want his reactions to everything.
Yes.
Like, in no time has he ever disappointed me with a quip.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that all the characters? Cheryl Blossom. Kind of just, like, weird. Like, I just don't get her yet, I think. She just kind of weirds me out.
Yeah, she's good, but it's strange because it's like she and Veronica are kind of filling a similar role in the show, but then are, like, against one another sometimes and then not at others. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because they're both like, well, she's like the gothic princess sort of.
Yeah. Whereas
Veronica's just the like New York elite.
Yeah.
But they like both have like bad news dads.
Mm-hmm.
They both are like similarly bossy and like Queen Bee-esque. I don't know. Yeah, it sort of feel. Yeah, I sort of agree. I don't really understand entirely what her role is, besides like being vaguely creepy.
Yeah, I think that they start to like give her a little bit more to do. I mean, she had enough to do in season 1 because like obviously like it was her brother that was killed, right. But I feel like they start to like flesh out her character a little bit more in 2 and 3.
Okay. Also, literally every single parent is bad news.
Oh, for sure.
Hate every single one. With the exception, maybe, of Betty's mom, who I find a little bit fun. who also plays the Duchess who has sex with Nate.
Oh, that's right. See, yeah. I know her as Sherry from Gilmore Girls.
Oh, right. Yeah, she's that too. She's something else too, but I can't remember.
She's in, what's that show that you watched?
Wrapped
in Plastic. Yeah.
Twin Peaks, yeah. When she's young, she's in Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
Twin Peaks is actually, like, it is a very weird show, but I also very much enjoyed watching it at the time. Have you seen it?
I've heard the original is, like, very, very good.
Oh my god, do not even begin to watch the new one.
I heard it's crazy.
Brendan and I watched one episode and we're just like, what on earth? Like, we're like, no, we're not continuing, which we've never really done. We watched the whole season of the first season of the OA, which is also like really weird and not really my cup of tea. But you should watch Twin Peaks. I actually there's murder, there's teen drama, there's a mystery.
I like all those things.
But there is some like kind of, I don't know, philosophical / spiritual weirdness through it. But I don't know. I liked it. Yeah, I guess we can talk about the book now.
Sure. Okay, so the book that we read was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. A book with a bright yellow cover.
I loved it.
I liked it, for sure. Should I read the back of the book?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Frances is a cool-headed and darkly observant young woman, vaguely pursuing a career in writing while studying in Dublin. Her best friend is the beautiful and endlessly self-possessed Bobby. At a local poetry performance one night, they meet a well-known photographer, and as the girls are then gradually drawn into her world, Frances is reluctantly impressed by the older woman's sophisticated home and handsome husband, Nick. But however amusing Frances and Nick's flirtation seems at first, it begins to give way to a strange and then painful intimacy. Written with gem-like precision and marked with a sly sense of humor, Conversations with Friends is wonderfully alive to the pleasures and dangers of youth and the messy edges of female friendship.
So I have to say, like, reading the back of the book, I would not have thought I would, like, love it as much as I did. Like, I
was
really
like, messy edges of female friendship. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I also just, like, I don't generally love an affair plotline.
Mm.
And so I sort of was like, I don't know that I'm going to love it, but I really liked it.
I think it's interesting. My first note on the book was that, like, once again, we have the character, like, our main protagonist is kind of the boring, like, literally is described as without a personality.
And, like, plain looking.
Yeah, and her best friend, Bobby, is, like, this, like, vivacious and gorgeous lesbian who's, like, smart and, like, you know, just, like, I wanted to read the book from Bobby's perspective, just because I think we've talked about this before, where it's, like, so many of these novels are written from the, like, boring, plain person's perspective, and, like, and they always have the vivacious friend, and you, like, wonder, why don't we ever get that kind of perspective?
I do agree with you, although I kind of think that Bobby, if we read it from Bobby's perspective, like, I don't think Bobby is, like, I think so much of who she is who Frances, like, projects her to be. So I think, like, remember there was that whole scene where Bobby was talking about how, like, she is just gonna, like, work at the university, and Frances is like, what the fuck, like, you're so special, why would you ever? But I think, and Bobby is like, you basically, like, put this importance on people that you like that we can't really live up to, and it's, like, not really real. And so I sort of wonder if, like, that's what's happening. Like, is Bobby actually as special as she seems, or is it just because she's, like, really special to Frances that she takes on that, like, persona?
Yeah, I think this book calls that idea into question more, where it's, like, the introspective person, like, are they just seeing something that person doesn't see in themselves, or is it just that you need an introspective person in order to tell a story? And is Bobby maybe not as introspective?
I don't think Bobby is as introspective. Although, I mean, like, I think Bobby's very smart and whatever, but she obviously, I don't know. There are a lot of things, like, we don't really get to know about her. Like, we don't know really exactly what's going on with her family. Like, we don't really know what she's doing half the time because we're stuck with Frances. But who I like, I love Frances. Like, I actually did enjoy, like, being through her, or seeing the world through her eyes for the book, but, like, we don't really know actually that much about Bobby and her, like, like, I don't know what Bobby's day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, it reminded me of when I heard Andre Asimov speak about Call Me By Your Name.
This book really reminded me of Call Me By Your Name.
Well, he was talking about how he always thinks it's, like, silly when people say, like, oh my gosh, write the book from Oliver's point of view. He was like, Oliver would never write a book.
Yeah.
Oliver's, like, too confident. Like, it would be like, oh, I looked over at Elio and was like, oh, cool. And that would be, like, and maybe, like, descriptions of them, like, having sex. But, like, Elio, like, the reason that Call Me By Your Name is a book is because Elio is like, oh my God, like, does he feel the same way? Like, I don't know. He's like, Oliver isn't inhibited those ways. So, like, there's no book from his perspective, which I thought was really interesting of, like, you always want to hear, like, the other perspective, but it, like, according to Andre, it's like you pick the perspective because it's the one who has the story, especially if you're going to be in first person.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, and you have to have somebody who's going to notice everything. Like, I think part of what is so great about Call Me By Your Name and this book is that you get, like, you feel the actual anxiety of, like, starting a new relationship and, like, wondering, like, what is that person doing? Like, what does this mean? Like, this person hasn't emailed me back yet. Like, or, like, I'm putting my phone under my pillow, so I'm not, like, constantly checking my phone. Like, that sort of insecurity and, like, not knowingness is, like, really relatable and I think kind of universal.
Yeah. I will say that every time, like, Nick would say something about Frances, or I think there's a point where he says that he fell in love with Frances, like, immediately, and I literally said out loud, how? Because like, to me, like, I really enjoyed this book and I really liked reading it, but I was just like, oh, Frances is just, like, I feel like I would not want to hang out with Frances. Like, I'd be like, God, I don't know. Like, I feel like I had this vibe from her that she was just, like, this, like, wet blanket and, like, not nice, or, like, not that I care about people being nice that much, but it was like, I don't know. I was just like, I literally was like, how? Like,
well, but I mean, I think that's sort of, like, I think it's really hard for people, like, if I described myself, I don't think I would describe myself as somebody who's that likable either.
But I think it's more, like, it's less, like, how she was seeing herself and more, like, how she was, and maybe because so much of it is, like, filtered through her own perception of how she's behaving, but it just seemed like she was just, like, this kind of, like nothing in every room.
Have you ever been to, like, a social gathering and left and basically felt like you were a nothing, but, like, everybody was like, oh, like, it was so nice seeing you, it was, like, you know, like, or it was such a great time, and it's like, wait, really, was it? Because I felt like I, like, contributed nothing.
Maybe, but I feel like when I'm insecure, I guess because, like, I feel like I'm so different from Frances, like, when I'm insecure at a party, I tend to talk way too much, and, like, what I like to call with you my stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Where it's, like, I'll just, like, talk and, like, make jokes, or, like, because that, like, making people laugh is how I feel comfortable with other people, especially if I don't know them very well, and so, like, me fading into the background is, like, not how I feel comfortable.
So I feel like I'm a Frances and you're a Bobby.
Maybe. And maybe that's why I was more curious about what was up with Bobby. I also just wanted to hear, like, more about what she thought about this whole nonsense affair.
Yeah. I mean, okay, well, so my, like, chief complaint about the book, which, like, I don't know that it's really that valid. I was texting Olivia about it, who read and also loved this book, was that, like, I just wish Frances was not 21 years old.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think, like, the idea of this affair is, like, I, like, can stomach it and get behind it, or, like, you know, not get behind it, but, like, enjoy reading about it. Mm-hmm. When I'm not, like, this girl is, like, a college student and, like, definitely being taken advantage of by an older man. Whereas, like,
I think that's the only circumstance in which, I think that is also, though, like, why I'm not, like, that hard on Frances for it. Because I'm like, oh, she's 21 years old. Like, she's making, like, if she was, like, 25, 27, like, if she's my age or our age, I'd be like, I mean, not that Frances doesn't know better, but it's like, you know better. And, like, we have friends that are married. We have friends that are having babies. It's like, you would never do something like that. I don't know. I mean, like, obviously people do. But... Right. But I think that it's, like, her naivete that is, like, is how she even gets into this situation in the first place.
I guess.
But I also agree with you that it's gross on his part.
Right.
Because it's like he's just kind of using that naivete and is, like, attracted to it or something. I don't know.
I guess, though, like, it's tough because I don't really give Frances a pass because I think she is, like, really emotionally intelligent and mature for her age. And so it's sort of like I felt like she was at least 24. Mm-hmm. Like, I just was like, there's no way. Like, I was, like, thinking about myself at age 21 and, like, I just was not where she was. Like, I was.
Yeah, I did. I kept thinking that she was in graduate school.
Yeah, it felt like she was in graduate school. No one is publishing, like, books of poems in college.
Well, maybe Sally Rooney is, because did you look at the back of the book? She was born in 1991. I was very upset to know that.
I know. I think she was, like, she wrote this when she was, like, 22, which hate that. So, I mean, I guess, like, maybe Sally Rooney's just way more advanced than we were at that age. But I don't think that most people are. Like, I think most 21-year-olds are, like, out drinking and, like, I mean, I would never have been invited to like an older person's home because I was a child.
No. I do remember thinking, because like I always thought it would be very glamorous to have like not with a married one, but like an affair with a professor or something. Like,
it's
I'm
gross.
very mature. Well, that's what I remember thinking. Like, I thought, oh, I'm very mature. Like, maybe that will be like, I'll fall in love that way. But I remember thinking, like, I can imagine no circumstance in which I wouldn't be totally bummed out to have one of my professors that I like, or even have like a baby crush on, like make any kind of pass at me.
100%.
Or like, well, also it's like, I don't even I mean, this is a different, like, he's not her teacher, but it's like, I've never understood how that even happens, because it's like, if you misread a situation on either end, it's like horrible.
I know. I've thought about that. But I mean, it happens. Like, it happens a lot. I think, to be honest with you, which is like, this is upsetting and gross, but I think how it usually happens, and like, I mean, maybe this is just my, my like anti-men classic perspective coming through, but like, I think what usually happens is the professor is able to pick out a vulnerable girl who has low self-esteem and like doesn't really know any different. And then like, basically I think they groom them. Like, I think they're like, oh, come to my office hours. Like, oh, like, actually let's do it over a drink. Like, oh, now we've had 3 glasses of wine. Like, oh, well, like, I think that's how it happens. Like, I don't think it's ever the type of thing where it's just like, oh, we automatically made out in my office. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think especially because like you and I were both English majors. And so it's like an English like student and their teacher. It's like, it is a slightly intimate relationship in that you're reading someone's writing. And so it's like, when you go to meet with them, it's like, usually like, it's a small, like, it's usually like, oh, we're talking about your writing. And if it's like, you're a good writer, and like, it was always important to me to like have my professors think that I was a good writer. I don't know. It's just like, I always remember thinking like, it would be such a violation. Even the professors that I was like, I adore this person.
Right. Well, and I think also for English majors, like, you're often talking about issues that are like emotional and like sometimes personal. And I think like the line between like professionalism is like very easily blurred. Like, I bet more people like confide in their English teachers than like any other.
Yeah. I mean, did you see that I saw this on Instagram and posted it to my story. It was like, you can tell who the sad kids in 8th grade were because they got very close to their English teacher.
That is like the most true thing I've ever heard.
Well, especially because like I am still very close with my 8th grade English teacher, because that was the year that I like stopped being friends with like a lot of my elementary school friends, because they were all like drinking and like experimenting, and I was like, oh,
God, 8th grade, that's so young.
I know. I'm very confused.
They're 13.
No, it was terrible. But yeah, so I don't know. But I do, the beginning of their sexual relationship really bummed me out. Yeah. Really bummed me out. Like, I did not find it like hot.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that's weird about it is that, like, if you're reading it through Frances, it's like you can see how it's hot, but like Nick himself isn't really actually that hot. Like, it's like, yeah, I guess he's attractive, but like he's kind of really boring and has very little personality and like really contributes almost nothing. And even like when they're like having their like sexual relationship, it's like he like can't even like really participate in intimacy either. And so it's sort of like this weird thing where it's like you almost want him to like be better because she like is clearly so into him, but it's also like I don't like it's weird because
I understand why she was into him and other than like looks, and like vice versa.
Well, but I also think there's something like, to him being older.
Yeah.
Because
well,
I think
wasn't like they had like sparkling conversation, but I wonder, like reading the back of the book and like how she kind of like lusted after, what is the wife's name, Melissa? How she like even said like she like admired her house, and like Nick is kind of like an ornament of that house.
Right.
And so it's like if she's having an affair with him, then it's almost like she's living that life. Especially when my favorite part of the book is when they're in France.
Oh yeah, I like that part too. Yeah, you know who I like really want to give a shout out to is Philip, who clearly is 100% in love with Frances from beginning to end.
I know.
But she does not notice him at all.
I also loved when Bobby like truly did think that Philip knew
about my God, that's the affair
because he like made a joke about it, and so she mentions it, and he's like, "Wait, are you serious?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing about Bobby though is like I'm like completely losing my train of thought. Say something else, I'll remember it.
One of my notes is that I think it's surprising, but I also liked how quickly they start their affair. Like the book is not about the buildup; it's like about the affair and the fallout of it. It's not like them making the choice to like have an affair. It's about them being like, oh, we're in this, and like dealing with the fallout. And even like the last page of the book is like, come and get me.
It's still going. Yeah, I mean the affair's not over.
Yeah. But I did find, I think Melissa is like clearly responding to like feeling betrayed and in pain, but I was not interested in their like modern like, oh, we're gonna stay married and it's okay if he still sees you and I'll still have you over to my house. And
yeah, well, I mean, I just found it mostly weird that like Frances continued to be invited to parties and stuff. It's like, oh, like obviously we'll invite your mistress to your birthday party. It's like, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just that like that evolvedness of like, oh, we're just, we're not so bourgeois that we don't accept that there are affairs and I don't know. Because I also like, I really liked Melissa in France when she was saying like, if he's bothering you, like, please tell me.
Oh, yeah,
because I because clearly, like, she's thinking of Nick as when he was having, when he was, like, dealing with a lot of depression and, like, maybe that he would almost, like, hurt her.
Well, and, like, I mean, I think the thing is that, like, Nick is, like, clearly actually, like, very mentally ill. Like, like, that's sort of, which... like Frances like does not seem to get at all, or like obviously she doesn't know in the beginning, but even when she does know, it sort of is like doesn't really change anything for her, which like I'm not saying it should, but like I think Melissa, like the way Melissa sees him is like she never thought that he would be desirable even to Frances in the first place, because she sees him as like this like broken person who like can't do anything at this point.
Yeah.
Whereas like Frances is like, oh, he's a movie star and like, sends me hot emails.
Well, and like what's really like almost perverse about Nick's role in the relationship is that, or like what he's getting from Frances is that like Melissa talks about how he starts to be better.
Yeah.
When he's seeing her,
it's
and
like
then
it's like he
almost
sucks
like allows
the health
him
out of her.
Yeah, and it's like it almost allows him to like rekindle his sexual relationship with his wife, because it's like he never would have if he hadn't been with Frances, and it's like gross.
Well, it's like, yeah, so it's like, so Frances is able to make him happy and like get his confidence back and like recover, and like, and then the result of that is that he then gets basically back with his wife, or like, I mean, they were never apart, but like they rekindled their romantic relationship, and then Frances is like, what, shit out of luck? Like, I mean, it's like, it's sort of like the thing where you like date a guy for a long time and you like spend all this time like sort of not like training him, but like you like help him to grow and make him better, and then the person who actually like enjoys the benefit is the person who dates him next. Except in this case it was his wife, but but yeah, it just seemed like it seemed very unfair.
I would agree with that.
The thing I was going to say about Bobby, though, is that I think that Frances sees Bobby as, like, this kind of, like... Or, like, and I think both Bobby and Nick, she sort of is like, well, like, what capacity could I possibly have to hurt you? And so, like, she doesn't really acknowledge that other people could have some kind of inner life because she's like the only one who could, and like or like she doesn't think she's important enough to like cause damage in other people's lives with what she says. And I thought it was like pretty fucked up that she published that story about Bobby and like didn't tell her.
Yeah, that was messed up for sure. Well, and it's also, I mean, but it's also interesting because in the beginning of the story, like the whole reason that Melissa even notices them is because they do that performance poetry.
Yeah.
And it's like that, oh my God, that Frances writes, and then Bobby is just like a better performer. And so that's why, like, they both get the almost like notoriety. And like Frances almost tries to say to Melissa, like, oh, like we do some of it together, but it's like Bobby does none of the writing, and yet like gets like an interesting amount of credit for it.
But Bobby also doesn't ever claim she did, right? Because she's like says to Melissa straight up, she's like, yeah, Frances writes it. Like, I don't write really much. So it's like, I mean, Bobby's not really like trying to be anything else, but yeah. I don't know. It's just the dynamic is very weird also because Bobby is like kind of lusting after Melissa too. So it's like Frances and Nick and then Bobby and Melissa. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just like odd. But I also think it's odd in the first place that Melissa took an interest in them too.
Yeah. Well, because it doesn't seem to be like, I mean, like she talks about writing an article about them, but it's like about what?
Well, that's what I'm like. Are they famous? Or? Like, like I don't really get it.
Yeah. Or like make them some subjects for some photos. Like it's not clear that she's like trying to like bring some young women up in the business. I mean, she does introduce, almost accidentally, she introduces them to that like mean woman.
Valerie? Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the one who like helps her publish her writing. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think my resentment toward like Frances and her being the one who's the one having the affair and everything is, I think like I just like hate when it's like literally the one described as personalityless is also like the irresistible one. I'm like, okay, is this what?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's what Nick wants, but I'm like, okay. It just seems like there are a lot of books about, which I wouldn't call like Elio personalityless or what, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, I'm not saying like all shy characters don't have a personality, but the person who's just like the like, you know, beige carpet.
Well, I mean, that's true. But I think also Frances is like super repressed. Like, yeah. Frances has things going on, but she doesn't tell anybody anything.
I know. That was also frustrating to me. Like, which I can kind of relate. Not that I have like a ton going on, but I can relate to the idea of like not like always choosing to open up to people about things. But it's like, I was like, I just frankly want to know more. It's like, I'd like you to tell some people about your endometriosis. I'd like to know more about your dad. I thought for sure that her dad was going to kill himself.
So did I. But it seems like what they're trying to suggest is that the dad is like schizophrenic or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, when she has that weird phone call with him, I thought he also had killed himself, but
me too.
He hadn't, I guess. Her whole relationship with her mom is weird. Also.
I mean, maybe some of this is just the subtleties of Irish life that we don't understand.
Well, I'm 50% Irish according to Ancestry.com, so I should get it.
Exactly.
Did you want to talk about Lady Bird too?
I do. And the reason that I want to talk about Lady Bird is because during this, I thought Frances starts less so, but I feel like Bobby, in a lot of ways, is Timothée Chalamet's character in Lady Bird.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Nick. He was Nick. Wait, because you told me to watch it, and I was sort of like, well, what's the connection here? And then I was like, oh, well, maybe like Timothée Chalamet is Nick because he's just like this like dumb man who like it cannot like fulfill her intimately, or like that she is like mapping this intimacy onto him that like he isn't also feeling. Which it seems like Nick does, actually, more than Timothée Chalamet does.
Yeah. Well, movie. Because where I see it is that, like, so Bobby's character, and, like, Bobby and Frances are both, like, very, like almost self-described communists in the book.
Right.
And so, like, they're very, like, Frances says at one point that she doesn't want a job. Like, the average income in the world is $16,000 a year, and that's what she wants to make. And I was like, sounds horrible.
Yeah.
But Bobby and, like, Frances comes from pretty modest beginnings. Because at first I was like, Frances reminds me of Timothée Chalamet's character. Because it was also, like, she's not paying for her rent. Like, she's just kind of, like, she has this, like, internship-y thing, and that's how she pays for, like, booze and food or whatever. And, like, but, like, she actually has, like, some, like, part of the reason that she has to write this story about Bobby, or, like, she does go ahead with publishing it, is because she would make a lot of money.
Right.
Or make a good amount of money when her dad becomes unreliable, and her mom, it sounds like, is, like, probably, like, lower middle class or middle class. But, like, Bobby has these, like, very leftist views, but then, like, comes from wealth, which, like, that is, like, kind of exactly Timothée Chalamet's character, where he's like, I try not to participate in the economy.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of bartering. I was watching with my mom, I'm like, are you kidding me?
But at the same time, Lady Bird is like, but you go to private school, where I just think that there's, like, this brand of, like, very left or very, like, communist view of, like, it's, like, easy to say that when you have money and can always turn back to, like, when you've never really had to think about money, it's easy to say that money isn't important.
Yes.
Not that I'm saying that her views aren't, but I also found it very annoying when she was like, well, you misread Lacan. I was like, okay, Bobby, like, please.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
But I also find that very believable for, like, that age. Because, like, you definitely, like, in that age, based on what they're studying, like, they would be reading political and, like, other kinds of theory, and they would definitely, like, be deciding that they were experts on it.
Right. When they're, like, I mean, I think about, even between, like, when we were in college and grad school, like, how I read theory is, like, very different.
Mm-hmm.
In both cases, didn't like it at all, but
yeah, I think when I was in college, I also didn't make a ton of an effort to understand. Like, when I took a political theory class and, like, basically got all the way up to, like, Nietzsche, and then was like, I give up. Like, I'm confused.
One of my worst grades in college was my philosophy 101 class. Like, I got a B-. And, like, it was not hard. Like, I mean, I just think, I don't know, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I don't know. So Lady Bird.
Yeah, I loved it. So as a girl who grew up in California and went to Catholic school, I found it very relatable. Also, the stuff she would do a little bit reminded me of stuff I would do as a teenager, like insisting to be called by a new name, or, like, I don't know, or, like all that stuff, like, when you're in your, like, first, like, real feeling romance, where you're like, oh, like, let's name a star after us, like, it's just, like, all that bullshit. I'm like, oh god. And like, when they showed Timothée Chalamet, I'm like, wow, I bet he's reading Catcher in the Rye, and I would have been a sucker for that.
That's what I think is what's nice about Lady Bird, is that it's a movie, like, I feel like you could watch it as a teenager, but I feel like it's so much better to watch it as an adult and be like,
100%.
Yeah. Yep. Because it's like Timothée Chalamet, his character is, like, 100% awful. But
oh my
it's
god,
like
the worst.
But
also those curls.
But it's like, of course, like, I also, like, I love that, like, after she sees him reading that, like, stupid book, like, the next scene is,
what
like,
is that book?
Oh gosh, it's like one of those, I don't know, it's like one of those books that's, like,
what, like David Foster Wallace or something?
No, I think it was, like, one of those, like, books about like the actual history of America or something like something
okay, boring.
Like
I would not have been as easily seduced by that.
Yeah, but like I love that like she then has the book and is like clearly trying to show him like, look, I'm also interested in this stuff, like, because I can remember like definitely trying to like angle my iPod on like field trips so that like guys could see like I was like really interested in like cool music.
Oh god, I know. Oh god, I pretended to like so much bad, or like not bad music, but I pretended to like so much music to appease boys in high school. Like the Fleet Foxes, I'm sorry, I just do not like them at all. At all.
But I totally get it. I totally get them. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
So good.
Oh god. I still have some of like my old like high school mixtapes or whatever. I found them recently in my Koala Bear CD case. And I was like, oh wow, great. Glad to still have these. Which I pretend to like 80% and did not enjoy. But like studied up on it and was like, okay, like this is what's cool. Oh,
yeah,
God.
for sure. But I also think that the movie has a lot of empathy, even for like, it's not like you should like tell Timothée Chalamet's character like to go fuck himself, because it's like, I do like that when they're like making out to Crimea River.
Oh my god, yes.
She says like, I haven't had sex yet, and he like throws his hands up in the air like, no, that's okay. Like I just think that
but then he says that he hasn't either, and then he has. Like, that's so horrible.
But it's like
it's not funny. It's horrible.
No, it's not funny. But it's like his dad is dying. Like I just think that the movie
I forgot his dad is dying.
Has a lot of empathy for all the characters in it, and it just shows like that it's just kind of like horrible and yet kind of beautiful to be a teenager.
No, it is. I mean, I was talking to Olivia today about it, about like, so the context it came up in was I actually rescued 2 13-year-old boys last week.
Oh my gosh.
Because, so I was driving to pick up my dad's car, and we saw like this dog in the middle of the road, like very close to the freeway, and I was like, oh, is that a coyote or is that like a dog? It was a husky, whatever. And then we saw this like 13-year-old boy like chasing after it, and like anyway they ended up catching up with it, and I was like, okay, good, like he found its person, it's fine. But then like they worked their way up to where we were, and they like couldn't get the call or the leash like harness back on him, and I was like, do you guys need help? And they're like, yes. And they were like crying, like they were just like these sweet little boys. And I like couldn't get the harness on. Also, I'm so afraid of dogs, and so like I was like pretty sure that dog was gonna bite me. And so I was like, you know what, like how about like you guys get in my car and I'll drive you home, and like we don't have to worry about this harness, and you can just put the dog in the backyard and we can be done. So I drove them home. And
nice.
Like yeah, I know, I'm really nice. It also like my car is covered in hair and drool, so I took one for the team here. But
well, you also could have kidnapped them. So.
I know. I was like really painfully aware of it when I was like talking to them in the car, because I think what I don't obviously think of myself as like a peer to a 13-year-old, but like I do think of myself as like closer to a 17-year-old than I think of myself as like a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it just like felt really weird, because I was like asking them questions. I'm like, oh my god, like I am literally like, these kids like are looking at me and thinking I'm like mom.
Yeah.
Which is like troubling. But I was saying to Olivia, I was like, it's really weird that like we were 17 10 years ago.
Yeah. And
she was like, yeah, but like aren't you glad we're not 17 anymore? I'm like, honestly, like I wish I could do it again, because I would do it so much better. I would. I mean, teenage Cher, like I like love her to death, but like god, she made some mistakes.
Yeah. But I think that's the point.
I know, but like I just wish I had been more confident in high school, because I think that I like missed out on a lot of things.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I think I read as like someone who was very confident, and like friends of mine would say like, oh, like you just like don't give a shit about it. And I was like,
I think same.
I care deeply.
Totally. Well, and I think that like I kind of rejected like, it's like I wouldn't go to school dances because I was like, well, like I don't really know who I would go with, and like, but it like came off as like, oh, she's counterculture. Like, sort of like,
Yeah, I think it was like I was like very like not fearless, but it was like I was like really into the things that I didn't necessarily care about looking stupid, and then I like avoided and acted like I wasn't even aware of like things that I thought was like actually like felt vulnerable about.
Yeah. I was just really like, I don't know. I wasn't mean, but I think I was like a little bit intimidating. And actually, to be honest, like I still am a little bit the same way, where it's like, I think I come off as unapproachable because I seem like very grounded in like specific ideas or beliefs or whatever, and I like seem not open to others, I think, sometimes.
I have never read you as that way, but I think that's why you and I make a good pair, because I think I have maybe a more welcoming energy.
No, you definitely do. I think I have like a more not like judgmental, but I think I'm more like I'm a little bit more closed.
Yeah, I think it's more like I think especially when you feel comfortable in a group, I think you are more like, I don't necessarily need another person here right now. Like if you and I were hanging out, maybe just the two of us, and like someone came into the grad lounge, you wouldn't maybe be like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing? Like, because you would be like, well, I have Audrey and like we can just keep talking.
Yeah, no, that's
but
really
I also
true.
think like you're better at like when you get to a new place at like putting yourself in situations where like when you moved here, like you went to all those like alumni events and
yeah, that's true.
I think you tried a lot harder than I did, whereas I kind of was like, well, this girl Cher is telling some funny jokes before Jane Austen class, and so I would like to be friends with her to hear the funny jokes and to tell her my funny jokes.
Well, and like I like basically like asked you out to be my friend.
Yeah.
So
well, but I appreciate when you walked in that like before that first class, and like I really appreciated that you had like clearly, to me, I found like a performative nature, which I also have, like, because you were
we
like
do both.
Not in a way that like I think is fake, but you were like talking like you had command of the room, and I was like, oh, I want to be her friend. Like finally someone I can relate to.
Yeah, I know. we were not like many of the other people in our program. Although I would say Tyler is like kind of the exception to that.
Yeah.
Although Tyler is also like 900 times more esoteric than us.
Yes.
God bless. I can't wait to see Tyler in Chicago, which
I know, I'm so excited.
It's been a while. Which, by the way, like, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but it's been over a year since we've seen each other.
I know. It's very sad. And what I realized is I mean, obviously, like, you were a huge presence in my life, but I think, like, I thought of you clearly as, like, 5 friends. Because now when I think of, because now whenever I think of, like, making plans, it's, like, basically if Grace is busy, I, like, have no one.
No, I know.
I mean, I have other friends here, but it's, like,
I think there's also sometimes, like, we had started, like, you know, we had gotten to the level of, like, at any time you can be like, hey, like, what are you up to? Like, you know, like, it wasn't sort of like you have to plan ahead to see each other. It's like you can just be like, hey, can I come over, like, today, now, tonight, whatever. Yeah. And it was, like, normal and not weird. And it kind of takes a long time, I think, to get to that. Or, like, I don't know, you have to find the right person. Because I haven't had that many people where I'm like, yeah, like, just show up. But yeah, anyway, I really liked Lady Bird. I watched it with my mom, which I think was like a good choice because there's like a lot of mother-daughter elements.
See, I think that is actually interesting to me because I watched Lady Bird. I like made my mom watch it because I just thought she would find it amusing. But I think she liked it, but I also think that she started to feel nervous because I like clearly loved it so much that I was loving it because of the mother-daughter depiction. And so all of a sudden she was like starting to be like, well, I'm not like her. I was like, well, no, like that's not the part I relate to.
Well, I think I actually really liked the mom and like felt a lot of sympathy. I think like my mom and I were watching it sort of, and I mean, that woman isn't like my mom, but I think my mom and I had like not a lot of conflict, but we had conflict when I was in high school. And it was sort of similar where it's just like, I'm being absurd. And like, my mom is just like, what? And like, also not only that, but like, I have no idea what to say to you because anything is wrong. And so like when she's going prom dress shopping and the mom is like standing outside the dressing room and like being like, oh, like that looks nice. And she's like, no, it doesn't. You know, it's like, you can't win. Yeah. And I think my mom and I sort of like enjoyed watching that because it's like, oh God, isn't it great that we're not like that anymore? Yeah. And my mom was sort of like, oh, I forgot what it was like to like be a mom of a teenager because it's been so long. And Mary Kate was never like, you know, much of a angsty teen.
Yeah. So it was just like a blast from the past from Teen Cher.
Yeah. But I think like when she like is trying to write the letter goodbye to her, and when like she like won't get out of the car to like drop her off at college, like that I thought was like very relatable, and like I cried about that part and whatever.
I found like the idea of like wanting so bad, I think what I related to the most to that movie is like wanting so badly to have a bigger life than you have and like to get out of where you're living, but then to feel guilty and to like start to understand that like by talking about that all the time, maybe you are telling your family that what they gave you isn't good enough. And like that's not the message you want to send, but you just like have this other idea.
Yeah. Like I think it's like very sad when her mom like calls her out and she's like, fuck you, like you like are getting out of the car like a block away, so you're like dad doesn't like people don't see your dad dropping you off, like you like say you're from the wrong side of the tracks, like how dare you, sort of like we are trying our best and like you're not grateful. Yeah, I don't know, that made me sad. It also made me really sad that like the brother gets the job over the dad. Like the dad is just like so sweet, and like
I love that dad. I love that when he's like, how do you always know it's me? And she says, Mom doesn't knock.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're just like our good family. I also loved when Danny, her like boyfriend who turns out to be gay, is like saying like your mom is not warm, and she's like, fuck you, my mom is really warm. like the idea
she loves me a lot.
Yeah, she loves me a lot. And he's like, well, you can't be scary and warm.
Also, when all those teenagers are clearly very high in her kitchen, she just laughs and goes back to bed. So clearly she's a cool mom.
She's definitely a cool mom.
Well, and it's clear, like, I think when she says, I'm trying to help you to become the best version of you that you can be, I think that is incredibly genuine, because you do see when she interacts with other people that aren't Lady Bird, she is like a delight. Where she's like buying people baby presents and like wants to make sure she sees the pictures of the baby and like asks everyone how they are. And it's just when she's with Lady Bird that she's like, are you tired? Because we can go. Like, you're dragging your feet. I don't understand what this is about.
Yeah, but that's so classic too. Like, I remember like sort of getting jealous of my friends when my mom would interact with them, and I was sort of like, why? Like why are you so nice to them? It's like, well, because you like, she's not their mom. Like, she doesn't have to like reform them or fix them. Like she can just enjoy them. And like, I mean, that's sort of Olivia's mom. Like, I have like a really like, or I view her as like one of like the more important women in my life, and like the relationship I have with her is like so different than the relationship Olivia has with her. Like, when I broke up with my college boyfriend, and like my mom like really couldn't say the right thing, because like I had felt like my mom didn't like him the whole time, and so she couldn't be like, you know, happy or like try to comfort me, because I was just sort of like, well, you wanted this all along.
Poor Mama P.
I know, poor Mama P just like was like couldn't say the right thing. But like Olivia's mom sent me an email that was like, you know, like, I know that like this is really hard, and like my mom could never have said that to me, because I would have been like, fuck you, like you wanted this at that time, you know, whereas like I could have her say it to me and like have it be accepted as like, you know, motherly wisdom. But anyway, moms, what are you gonna do?
Pretty great.
Yeah. They are.
Do you have any other closing thoughts about I'm looking over my notes about conversations with friends. Oh, I also have a rogue note here that says an all lowercase email is a specific kind of hot. Because, like, Nick sends her emails that are all in lowercase. And I was like, I kind of get that vibe. And I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's my vibe, but...
I feel like there is a specific kind of confidence that you can... And, like, a literary confidence that you can send an all lowercase email.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's like, I know better, but I'm choosing not to capitalize.
I mean, okay, it's like, but then, like, why use punctuation, too? I mean, it's just, like, I don't know. Obviously, that doesn't appeal to me, but...
I did think it was interesting how, like, sparse this book is. Like, it's definitely not, like, flowery or, like, I think if we seem to be comparing Call Me By Your Name in this quite a bit. I think I definitely love Call Me By Your Name a little bit more.
Call Me By Your Name again.
I probably will. It's so good.
It is so good. That's the best book I read last year.
I think same.
I really like this. I think I like this better than you.
I think so too. I think it's just because I found Frances a bit irritating.
And I just related to her, so
yeah. But I liked the story of it.
Yeah, I think I also like, just because this past year has been like a year in which I felt like I a little bit was becoming undone. Maybe I was like feeling a little bit more related to Frances than you know I may on a normal year.
A little messier.
Yeah, a little bit less, I don't know, together, scheduled in, whatever.
Right now, like where you are, like on my phone, it's like the bar where like the, you know, like the earphone thing is, so it looks like you have bangs. I'm like, you're pulling them off, I've got to say.
Thank you so much. Well, you've been frozen for the past hour. So.
Oh, super.
Yeah. Well, Bobby had bangs, so.
Oh, there you go.
But I don't think I'm a Bobby. I think I'm a Frances.
No. See, but I would never say, like, Bobby, I think, is the one who tells Frances that she doesn't have a personality, and, like, almost as a compliment, and I would never say that. Not that I think that that's...
We're also not lovers, so there's also that.
No, that's true.
So I wouldn't say that it's the metaphor runs, you know, that deep.
For sure.
If one of us is going to be one or the other. I do like, in their friendship, like kind of before they start dating again or whatever, I do like that, like kind of, like I liked that Bobby, when like she had hurt feelings, like basically finally breaks and sends Frances an email being like, listen, it was fucked up what you did. And like I liked the directness between the two of them. And like also just like the understanding that it was like, okay, like you did, like you apologized, you like put in the effort, and I forgive you because I love you, like obviously, but I just needed to hear it. And I like that sort of like clearness and like consistency of that relationship, as opposed to like wish-washy Nick, who like you never knew what he was thinking at all. Yeah.
Well, and I think that dynamic is true to female friendship, or at least that's how I like to be, in terms of like, I just don't have a huge ability to be mad at the people that I care about.
Yeah, God, me either. I don't either.
And so it's like, okay, I like that there was an apology, and now I'd like to move on because I want to continue to have you in my life.
Yeah, and I do think that like a sincere apology like does mean a lot.
Yeah.
I have a friend who like doesn't believe in apologies, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah. I'm like,
how, why?
I don't know. I'm sure he's explained it to me at some point, but I'm not convinced. I think that's just I think it is. It's definitely a man.
Women are constantly apologizing.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. But I think like maybe like apologies aren't cathartic for him, or like I'm not really sure, but or maybe it's like just an excuse for him to never apologize. But one of the two.
I will say that like apologizing though, like always, maybe this is my own like anxiety, like, I always feel like it doesn't, even if the person is like, you know, like, thank you, like, I accept your apology, or like, it's okay, I always still feel like it's not okay.
Well, I think it takes some time, but I sort of feel like it's like the first step to recovery or whatever. And I think like you can go back to some kind of normalcy once you've had the catharsis of an apology.
Mm-hmm.
If the person really meant it, like, I think that you like I think it's not, if you just are like, well, I'm sorry, like if you just say I'm sorry, that doesn't mean really much.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're sort of like, I see why this hurt you, and like, this is what I'm going to do differently, and like, I feel terrible, it's like, okay, well,
yeah, that's a start.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to my friend Michelle, who listened to our podcast today for the first time.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle. She liked it.
Yay.
For the record. You'll probably meet her next weekend. She's the person I'm going to Backstreet Boys with, so.
You had told me that you were coming into town like months and months ago, but I forgot about it, and so it's just like the most delightful surprise to me that you were coming into town next weekend.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled.
We have to take pictures because we have none.
Yes, that's a priority.
Like, we gotta look good. I'm taking the red eye on Friday or Thursday night, so by Saturday, hopefully I look normal again.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me like you're free for Mission Happy Hour, but I don't know.
I am always free for. Oh my god, Mission Happy Hour. The most likely thing to get me not only blackout drunk, but like also like probably having a 45-minute phone conversation that I have no memory of.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, let's definitely do Mission Happy Hour.
Brendan somewhere listening, like, oh no.
Brennan has not listened to this podcast since like episode 2. Like,
that's fair.
He's not.
Maybe he listened to the one where he makes an appearance.
Oh, where we yell at him. Go back downstairs. Oh God. God bless him. It was his birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Brendan.
Oh, happy birthday, Brendan.
When you're not listening. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, so.
I think I gave it 4.
That seems right based on our conversation.
Because I feel like I liked it and I appreciated the writing, but it was just like my own, like, not relating to Frances that held me back.
Fair enough. You're just not dark and twisty enough right now.
True.
Try a year of law school and you'll be right in with her.
Perfect. Conversations. There. Okay. Yep. I gave it 4 stars.
I haven't rated it yet because I finished it literally in the car ride on my way home, but keeping it together. All right. Well, I guess that's all I have to say about it.
Yep. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, rate, review, and subscribe.
As always.
Yep.
All right.
Also, we are aware that our episodes have disappeared from Spotify. It's because Spotify changed their policies.
Yes.
And we may or may not do something about that at some point.
We will do something. Maybe I'll do it this weekend at some point when I have downtime.
But look, there are plenty of other places that you can listen to this podcast, so, like, please don't complain.
Yeah, we don't want to hear complaints. But we are sorry. I will give you a sincere apology about it. We understand the inconvenience, and we will look forward to fixing it eventually.
All right, well, thanks for listening.
All right, bye.
Bye.